So she didn't inherit Grandpa's jawline, but there's no doubt she's family. It's your job to raise her, and it can be tough. Let's make it easier. With technology and automation, you can do more, like produce high-quality bales with way less effort. Built-in sensors can measure bale moisture and size, so you can monitor quality on the go and manage your fleet from your phone. Sit back and enjoy effortless operation. Discover an easier way to work.
Welcome to another edition of Cattle Chatter. I'm Susan Littlefield. Of course, Cattle Chatter is being fueled by the great folks over at John Deere, so you can turn your hay or silage into consistent dense bales with John Deere round balers. Precision features, integrated technology, and dependable performance that you can count on. Well, another interesting week within this cattle market, 8 days up on the trade action. Brad Kooima joins us. Brad, of course, with Kooima Kooima Varilek out of Sioux Center, Iowa. So let's talk about this momentum. I mean, we had a little bit of a step back last week. Momentum just popped right back in.
Without a doubt, and not just a little bit either. You're talking about feeder cattle in particular. Huge gains. Some of these months over $30 higher than they were 11 or so trading days ago. Nearly unprecedented. How this last round of this thing, 8 straight days, and several dollars later, we have now flipped the basis to a pretty good extreme, to where both on the feeders and the fats, futures are now trading a premium. The feeder cattle futures are trading at a premium to the index, which even with the lower day here today, it looks like we're still $4 over what the index is going to come in at today, which is such a big factor. I don't think on the feeders as much as it is on the fats, because on the live cattle, we've hinted around this, I think, for a couple of weeks. You and I have about, the basis in the October, it's almost high enough. You wonder if somebody might make a delivery, and we don't have to wonder anymore. We did have a few deliveries posted yesterday afternoon. Curiously, in Amarillo, I would have thought maybe they would have happened in the north, but 10 loads. The market's handling it pretty well. In fact, October's are actually not as bad as December cattle right now. They're both a little lower, but not extremely so. So I guess the market isn't carrying a great deal. But what I worry a little bit about it of a longer view is if you take October, where the market's telling you to don't sell cattle, wait, or if you're hedged, wait, try to get some convergence. I mean, we only got 230 only. We got 235 last week. But with futures at 242, that basis is much wider than normal. So there may be a little bit of a holding action, and a holding action will give you a rally, but sometimes you pay a bit of a price for it later, with some backed up cattle. And then December, of course, is another almost $5 higher than October is. So none of that seems to be bearish right now. I just throw that out there because that's an observation of more of a macro, I think, on what the cattle are doing, Susan.
So how overbought do you see this market right now?
Feeder cattle are nearly a record for the country. I'm staring here. I'm being rude here, but I've got a monitor right above what I'm looking at you with, and near record with stochastics in the mid 90s. That's the tool we like the best, the slow stochastic. But there are times here on this rally where the market's gotten overbought and just stayed that way for weeks at a time. So those momentum indicators have not been the greatest when you get into this kind of a extreme bull market. And like somebody said here a little bit ago, the numbers are still tight, Susan. I mean, it's not like things have changed. Now we're trying to figure out, okay, so the numbers are this way and they're going to be that way for a while. We can add some supply by making the cattle bigger. They're not going to open the border today. So what's the other side of it look like? And then trying to read the tea leaves on demand is really tough. If you can figure that out, call me. There are some of those indicators there would suggest maybe this demand thing is not quite like it had been.
Okay. So how strong? Let's go to demand then, because you talk about the demand. Has that wall been hit at this point, do you think? Are consumers saying, hey, we need to pull back for a little bit?
Well, I'm a little concerned. A couple of things that have me thinking a little that way. And one's the choice select spread. The choice select spread is narrower than it's been since before COVID. And at this time of year, it's narrower than normal. Anybody that feeds cattle here that's watching this deal knows that, well, it takes days to get grade, right? And we are selling these lawn-fed calves right now in the north, and so these cattle ought to grade really, really good. Yeah, so maybe and the average weights are so high, right? So we know we got cattle on feed a long time because the weights are high. Those couple of realities. So that would be part of the story, that there's more choice available, right? The other part might be, has the demand slowed a little bit or not? That would also narrow up the difference between the higher price, the choice, and the select, possibly. The other thing that's a little more of a macro, and I'm reaching maybe a little bit because the seasonality for boxes is strongly to go lower. Remember, we talked about this for 6 weeks, right? That
Right.
Labor Day, we weren't wrong, right? And so you got a box deal now that the packer has to wonder about. He started cutting kill already in April, and really got aggressive 3 months ago. So between cooler cleanouts, not killing on Fridays, Fort Morgan dead for 10 days, blah, 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 we've cut the kill, and we've got boxes now about $60 off the highs. And that's after doing all that kill cuts. You got to kind of like, oh, jeepers, what happens, if we start to spin this kill back up? I'm anxious to see. I think it'll be all right. It's been that way a number of years, that when we get to end of November, the demand for the ribs, the holiday buying for the loins and the ribeyes and all that stuff, right? That picks up, and that carries an awful big share of that box value. The hamburger thing is problematic because we've lost some business there because of what this hamburger cost. Hopefully we can rebuild that if it doesn't last too long. But yeah, there's a few things out there that, and again, all of that stuff, is that bearish today? Probably not. But it's something to be aware of, I think, when you're looking at the market for a little more of a longer view.
So when can we hope for holiday buying to start to pick up?
Week of Thanksgiving, traditionally, a week before my birthday, is one of those circles on the calendar for me anyway, which is the middle of December is my birthday. So there's a pretty strong seasonal the first week of December when February cattle start to turn, based on either weather or improved demand. And a bit of a supply deal. I think this year too, I'm very friendly for the first quarter of the year because I think that there's been some heifer retention. I think that we won't have to feed every single heifer, and there'll be a less yearling supply for that time frame. So I just worry a little bit in the here and now that we maybe have a little, we may feel like we got to chop wood a little bit between now and Thanksgiving. But so far so good. The market, other than today, we've had a spectacular run the last week and a half.
So tongue in cheek, but is the market just tired of New World Screwworm and the conversations that float around it?
Speaking for myself, I am so beyond sick of the story. Joe says it well. He says, the first mad cow was really bearish. The second one didn't make any difference. And I think that's a pretty good analogy, right? I mean, okay, guess what? They got another one. Guess what? It's the same baloney where they haul a load from Guatemala dang near up here, and then oh yeah, it's got a cut on it. I'll be darned. And they treat it with Ivamax or Dectomax or whatever it is they're treating it with, and it heals it. It solves it. It's like, I had a fascinating visit yesterday with a gentleman from Mexico. Actually, there's some areas of Mexico where there is excellent protocol, which would absolutely guarantee the health of these cattle. This issue is very complicated, very non-transparent, and I still have the opinion that it's not whether it's going to, it's when the border is going to open, and that'll probably change some of this the psychology at the very least of the dynamics. But I don't know. There's more people thinking like I am that it might take until cold weather, which maybe is the end of the year or something, or January. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, we have a couple listener viewer questions to pass along to you. And the first one is your thoughts, frustrations when it comes to the continued government shutdown, and how do you see that affecting some of the data that you normally receive?
Sarcastic, Brad. A lot of it I don't miss at all. Yeah, well, yeah, but export data would be useful. Maybe not as much for cattle because exports have been horrible, and I don't think there's any surprises there. But for a grain guy, and the crop updates and stuff like that on the Mondays would maybe be a little bit useful. Some of that stuff we miss. Thankfully, we get a pretty good idea what the feeder cattle index is going to be at. And the weight data, I wouldn't mind having a little more on a timely basis, of course. So, it's not a game changer for me, but I do think that it is maybe a bit of a macro in terms of if this goes on and on and on and on, does this not become a drag on the economy? Does this not become a problem for a lot of people that do depend on regular payments and this sort of thing? So far, really not reflected very much in the stock market. But, you worry about stuff like that, I guess, when you're dealing with the cattle always seem to be in the front row of those demand stories.
This one a little out of your wheelhouse, but a little not. And let's talk about the correlation you see between the gold market and the cattle market.
Not the first time I've been asked this, actually. So you'd think I'd have probably a prepared better answer. But, as I reflect on that, I don't really see what fundamentally why those two would have a lot to do with each other. Gold would be an inflation harbinger, right? And typically the grains would be more dialed into that sort of thing. And obviously these grains haven't done anything to the upside. I personally think it's coincidental. Cattle have obviously had great fundamentals, or tightest supply in a long, long time. The border's closed. We had tight supply to begin with before that. So we had every reason, I thought, for the cattle market to rally. And the whole gold rally, though, before I, give you that poor answer and then act like I answered it, the whole gold thing is curious to me. You can see how old I am. It used to be that when the gold rallied, there was what we used to call a flight to quality. In other words, an investment dollar that didn't know where to go. He didn't know where it was safe. He didn't know if he trusted the American dollar. He didn't know if he trusted the stock market. For a while, the Japanese yen, I remember in my career that there was a time where there was all kinds of investment in the Japanese deal, and now that's slowed down. And on and on. So, the fact that there's such an interest in the gold market actually does bother me a little bit. Is that going to be a foretelling or, of a slowdown or something like that? Right now, the stock market just fuels itself. It's like, they buy it because it went up and it went up because they bought it. You tell me where that stops. It should be interesting. Hopefully, I don't root for any of that bad stuff to happen. But when you're looking at all-time prices that rival markets as a percentage of increase, you and I talked about this a year and a half ago when we were saying, well, what maybe would happen? And I mentioned something like, well, the lumber 2.5 times in value. Well, the cocoa doubled in value. Well, the orange juice did that. Well, our COVID low was 85 on a gallon, so we have almost tripled in value. And we deserve every penny of it. Don't get me wrong. I'm a cattle guy, but also you got to have some sort of, sense of, well, okay, it's been a great move. Now, what do we do from here? And that's just kind of the old guy caution in me, I guess.
All right. Best way for folks to get a hold of you.
Best way is to call us. You can look at kkvtrading.com, our website, but 712-722-0023. You can talk to we have 4 brokers here, and we'd love to hear from you.
All right. That, of course, another edition of Cattle Chatter. Cattle Chatter is being powered by the folks at John Deere. Do you want to learn more about the baler that we've been featuring at the beginning of this show? Stick around. We've got an interview coming up talking about technology that brings you some interesting ways to bale high-quality hay. And that, another edition of Cattle Chatter.
The views and opinions of this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers. There is substantial risk of loss in trading futures and options, which you should carefully consider prior to trading.
If you've been watching Cattle Chatter, you have seen a commercial with a John Deere baler in front. And let me tell you, folks, I got to stand next to this baler during World Dairy Expo. It is as beautiful as it is in the commercial. But now we're going to get the opportunity to learn a little bit more about what this baler is all about from John Deere. Kayleen Ballesteros joins us now. She is a hay and forage marketing with John Deere. So let's start out. Let's talk about the excitement that is building off of something so simple as making a bale of hay.
Yeah. So this year we've had a lot of new technology, but also we have some really great foundational features that are on our balers that we really love to make sure that are highlighted. So we have our pre-cutter. Our pre-cutter helps to make sure that we don't have a lot of that waste that can have if you're cutting in a tub. We also have our high capacity pickup. It helps you pick up about 30% more than what our traditional standard baler has. And so those are things we don't want to forget, because that's all really vital in making a good bale and making sure that you're turning the profit that you want. In addition, we have some really cool automation features as well.
So let's talk about those automation features. What are you seeing, and how is it going to make it just that much easier for our hay grower out there?
Yeah, so first we really have what we like to call our full automation suite. And so automation is not new to John Deere in the round baler space. We've had what we have called our tractor baler automation for many years now. And that's the ability to set the size of bale that you want, and then you'll set the speed, and the tractor will go that speed. It will stop when it needs to, and it will kick that bale out when it needs to, all on its own. So just really eliminating some of that guesswork for you, or just some of the extra operational efficiency part of it. Then in addition, we have what is new, and that's our weave automation. And so if you think to back when you're younger and you're learning to weave back and forth, and maybe your parents are like, no, you're going to have to go do a different job, because this really takes a little bit of art to achieve that square shouldered bale, right? With this, you don't have to worry about that. So you just set your tires over top of that windrow, and the baler at the hitch does that weaving for you.
You know, that's amazing, because not every field is perfectly square. Not every field is, and not every driver is a perfect cutter of alfalfa. And so what a neat opportunity to have this type of technology to take that guesswork out of it.
Really, that's it. And we really hope that, of course, you want that perfect windrow, that you don't have to do too much weaving, right? But the reality is, it's not the case. You've got different sized fields that you cut in, and then you've got also environmental factors with weather, right? Different things that will have some inconsistencies in those windrow widths. And so we just know that the reality is that weaving is a part of doing that. And we want to make sure that no matter who's in the seat, they can achieve the same result.
What about having the right tractor tied with the right baler?
Yeah, so we've got our 6 series. That's really our bread and butter when it comes to the round baling space. And we've got our 6Ms. So we've got our IVT transmission on all 6Ms, which does allow for a more seamless, easy experience in fuel efficiency. It helps to maintain that consistent power at a set speed. The 6Ms also have the new PDU on the corner post for just really easy viewing experience of your machine details. And also it does allow higher horsepower at that mid-spec level, which we didn't have before. And that just really makes sure you have a really versatile tractor and you can do more jobs with one.
What type of reaction and feedback then have you received from customers as they see not only the new weave technology, but just overall what John Deere's bringing for them?
I think the overall reaction is that we have a tool for everybody. And so whether you are more basic, or you're in the more advanced space, or you're just looking to have it, you want to focus on other activities while you're sitting in that cab, we have different automations, different features that really help complement that. And so that's really what we strive to do, is make sure we have a tool in the toolbox for everybody. We hear things like less mental fatigue, or bale quality, right? And then all the way up to savings from an ROI perspective, because of our baling documentation and being able to make sure you're using the right inputs in the right spots and turning over that profit that you'd expect.
Okay, Lena, it sounds like they're getting some great customer experience as well that John Deere is so well known for.
Yeah, that's really, our customers are the heart of John Deere quality. And so from the very beginning, as really from what solutions should we have, that's straight from the mouths of our customers. And then from there, they are along us with collaborations and partners. Really, there are partners along the way, and making sure that solution meets what they were expecting. And they help us through that testing process all the way to now we're ready to go. And it's really just a fun experience seeing some of these new solutions come to life, really from the hands of our customers.
So as you look at hay and forage and what John Deere has to offer, what's the dealer's role in all of this?
Our dealers are just as included. If it not, they have to be even more included in what we're doing. And so the success of us selling it is dependent on our dealers and making sure they're along with us. And so those dealers help test, they help execute the demos in the field with customers. If you're really excited as a customer about a new feature and you just want to go try it out, go find your local dealer, because they can demo the best solution for you based off of your operational needs. And honestly, if it wasn't for our dealers, we just wouldn't be able to execute like we of course need to, because they are the heart of their area and those customers and knowing what they need. And so they are their voice.
All right, folks, if you are getting ready and thinking, well, what you want to do different for next year's growing season, go find your local John Deere dealer.